Hi, welcome to Jahia Digital Factory Quick Start for Developers Part 2, Updating an Existing Module. In this video, we will show you how to import the source files for a module currently residing outside of Jahia. Working in Studio, we will make modifications to the module, commit those changes to source control, and finally we will do a module release. For this video, we will use a module currently residing on GitHub. Here there is a module called Customer Quote located in a repository on GitHub. There is only the first commit. We have only the master branch. There are no releases and no tags. And let's refresh so we can copy the URL for the repo, which we will need to import the sources into Studio. Logging into our Digital Factory installation. I choose Mode Studio from the toolbar. Then New Module, Get Module from Sources. Here we choose either SVN or Git and paste the address of the repository here. Now we have our module inside Studio, and we are free to make modifications to the module. Here on the Module Details page, I can already enable the module on my pre-installed web project called My Company Site. Now let us look a bit closer at the structure of the Customer Quote module. Here, drilling down into the module's file structure, we see two views exist for a module, a default view and a detailed view. We can also see that a content template exists for a module. Since we click the Enable button for a module on our site, My Company, we are free to create content in edit mode. Let's first create a new page. Now this site is using the Jahia sample bootstrap templates. So we can choose one column for a page template and create our customer quotes here. All we have to do is activate the area under page content and add our customer quote module from the component library. So here we see a customer quote rendered in its default view. Clicking on the link, the content is rendered in full page using its detailed view. Let's say the task we have been given is to add the rating social component to the detail view. We have also been given a CSS file to render the actual quote here on the left. Going back to Studio, we edit the main row in the content template. In place of one column, we will choose a two-column layout. In the second column, we enable the area so we can add a rating component. We can check if the rating component is available to use in our module by looking at the dependencies. We simply drag the rating module to make a dependency. Now we are able to add a rating. Next, we link the rating to the customer quote, which for this content template is this main resource display. With the structure and in-context display buttons in Studio, we can see our new content template with this rendering applied directly in Studio. Next, we will upload a CSS file to render our customer quote. Under Resources, we will create a CSS directory and upload our CSS here. You can also create your CSS files directly in Studio and can modify them here as well. We have some image files that are called by the CSS and will surround the customer quote. We'll add those as well. We can preview our newly uploaded images simply by clicking on them, and we can see a preview here in Studio. Now let's modify our two views, our detail view and our default view, to have the template add resources tag to include our newly uploaded CSS file. As we have modified CSS files, we now must compile our module. We do so by clicking on the button here. Once compiled, we can go back to edit mode. In edit mode, let's publish the customers page in order to use the rating component that we added to the content template. Once published, let's look at our page in live mode. So here's our customer quote content rendered with its new CSS, and here we see the rating component on the right. Now let's commit our changes. Going back to Studio, clicking the source control menu allows us to send our modifications back to our GitHub repository. Here we enter the comment for our commit. Going back to GitHub, after a refresh here, we can see that our commit has indeed arrived. So let's look at the file system on Git, specifically the repository XML. Here we can see that the column we added with the rating in the content template is indeed there. Staying in Git, let's make another modification. We'll make a modification to the detail view of our module directly here in the editor in Git. The idea is I will add an H1 title and I will add the version number, the current version number of the module, in order to demonstrate the release process. So the current version of our module, of course, is 1.0 snapshot. After committing our changes in Git, we can go back to Studio. Here, under the source control menu, we choose Update Module in order to get the latest version of our module. Our module is now updated, and we can go back to the Live Mode tab we have open here, refresh to see the latest modification. Here we see indeed the version 1.0 snapshot we entered in GitHub. So now let's release the customer quote module. We will go back to the default or the detail view here. We'll change that H1 title version to be 1.0. Here from the distribution menu, we choose Release. With Digital Factory, you can configure a distribution server, either by setting up a private app store or using a Maven repository. We can also skip the distribution server setup and release to our GitHub repository. We can choose either the major or the minor version for the next iteration of the module. Let's choose the minor version here. The jar file for the module can be downloaded by clicking the link. Now let's go to GitHub and look at our module. After a refresh, here we can see the release of our module. The module has been correctly released and correctly tagged. Looking at the pump file, we see that the current version for the module is indeed 1.1 snapshot. So let's go back to Studio and we'll repeat this process one more time. We will now release version 1.1. We'll change our example H1 title here. Here we see it is indeed version 1.1 being brought into our detailed view. The next iteration, of course, will be 1.2 snapshot. Version 1.1 of our customer quote module has been released, and the jar is available for download. We check in GitHub and see we have successfully released another version of our module. Going back to Studio on the module details page, we can see that we have 3 versions of our module. And we can also see that the module that is currently running is 1.2 snapshot. From the Mode menu in Studio, we can go to Administration. Under System Components, we can see the list of all modules for our Digital Factory installation. We can also see their status, whether they are stopped or started. For our Customer Quote module, let's start version 1 by clicking the Start button next to the version number. This will, at the same time, stop the current version 1.2 snapshot. Refreshing on our Live View tab here, we can see we are indeed now running version 1.0. Now let's start version 1.1. Again, after a refresh, we should see version 1.1, and we do. In this administration panel, stopping all versions of our module, we'll go back to our page and see, after a refresh, that it is no longer available. Of course, to show you that the content does still exist, let's start one of the versions of our modules. Go back and refresh our page. There you see that we can quickly and easily switch between different versions of modules without ever restarting our Digital Factory installation. I want to thank you for joining us for this Developer Quick Start Part 2 video, and as always, wish you happy coding.